What's good, everyone? This is a professionally rebooted Dr. Nii Darko, host of Docs Outside the Box. As a matter of fact, I'm doing this without glasses.
Ooh.
I'm using no glasses for this episode. I'm ready.
You lying.
I'm up, and it's stuck.
You
know what I'm
need to
saying?
wear some glasses like DMC.
That's what I'm talking about. I got my Cazelles. I'm ready to go. What's good, everyone? This is Dr. Nii, host of Docs Outside the Box. Thank you for listening to another episode of Docs Outside the Box. I'm joined by
Dr. Nii with Docs Outside the Box?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't get on my intro, but I'm joined by my lovely co-host.
Dr. Renee.
What you forgetting? Come on, get on point, man. You just busy laughing.
You're cracking me up.
Come on, yo. Let's go.
You get picked up from the airport.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you come from a medical mission, and all of a sudden, you're just like Hype Man 102 or 105, or I don't know what you, 2.0.
Yeah, let me tell you something right now. My phone was on airplane mode all the way from the get-go in Ghana, right? Because, I don't know, Verizon and Vodafone, I don't know, they have some type of relationship. But I wasn't trying to play those roaming fees. I wasn't trying to pay those roaming fees at all.
I'm roaming in West Africa.
Nah, I ain't trying to pay those roaming fees. So my phone was on airplane mode.
Right.
And then I make it to immigration in the United States.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yo, it's Sunday night. I'm flying. It's going to be a quiet night. Arrive Monday morning. Turn my phone on and boop, 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 boop. Yo, what's this? What? Oscars? Chris Rock? What? Will Smith? What? Yo, there's a lot to talk about, but we're going to save that to the end. Let's save all of that drama to the end. We're here to talk about, do a little recap of my trip to Ghana.
Yeah.
So I know you wanted to ask me some questions.
Yeah.
I got some things that I'm typed up. I'm ready to talk about. So I'll let you take it from here.
Yo, so first of all, how was your trip overall?
Oh, it was amazing. It was amazing. I'm rebooted, so that's the most important thing. Like we said in the previous episode, when I go there, I come back rebooted. The way how I look at a whole bunch of different things has changed. I feel refreshed.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. I hope people come with me. I'm taking people with me next time.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
You took some people with you this time.
Right, but like I'm recruiting some folks this time to come with me. So
Okay,
including
okay.
people listening to the show. It was dope.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So
Now, usually I go with you, and usually I'm the team leader. So I want to know.
Team leader is more than just like being a likable person. Like team leader is you got to think about and anticipate what the group is going to need on a daily basis. Because
Right.
y'all don't know, like when we got there, in Kumasi, for some reason, the way how hotel reservations and everything got worked out, we were about 45 minutes away from the hospital. So being team leader, you're thinking about like, what time do we need to leave the hospital, or what time do we need to leave the hotel to get to the hospital on time? And recognizing that some people on the trip have an operation first thing in the morning. Other people have their first clinic patients maybe later on in the day. How do you make this work?
Yeah.
What time do we come home? What are we going to eat when we come home? What are we going to eat for lunch?
Yeah.
Who's going to keep track of data? Because I'm telling y'all right now, if you go on a mission trip and you don't have data, whew, you're going to have a problem because we got to provide this data to all of the people who have donated. Shout out to Johnson & Johnson who gave us sutures and all these different organizations that gave us stuff. We got to be able to reconcile with that. So I'm in charge of that also. And then not to mention is managing all of these different personalities.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of these people
Yes.
don't know each other. So Surgeon A may not get along with Nurse B, and medical student A may ask questions that irritate Surgeon C, or, it's just so
Or
many.
somebody does something inappropriate.
Someone does something inappropriate. Someone tries to do something in Ghana that they don't necessarily do in the United States, and I have to check them and be like, listen, that's not what we do. So there's a lot of different things that is involved with team leader that I didn't recognize. And I'm glad that I had another surgeon who came with me, and he was able to do the majority of the surgeries because I found myself in the beginning wanting to be involved in all the surgeries.
Yeah.
And then I was like, wait, hold on a second, pause.
Yep.
Can't be involved with all the surgeries and run all of these different things. So
Yeah. So now you know how I feel.
yeah.
Yeah, because when I've gone in the past, we've had a couple of OBGYNs, and there are cases that I'm like, man, I really wish I could scrub into this case, but I got to make sure that everybody else is okay. So So being team leader was a pretty big surprise for you.
I wouldn't say it's a surprise, but you just realize that it's and this is people, right? This is this is not a people business, but it's about relationships.
Right.
And some people may not want to wake up that early, but it's about convincing people that, listen, this is not a vacation, right? This is about doing what's best for the folks that we're treating, and what works best is if we work as a team unit.
Right.
So if one person rolls in, we all got to roll in. Right. And we got to make it work so that we kind of look at the unified goal, which is to provide the best care for people as a team unit.
Right. Well, what other takeaways did you get from your trip?
Oh my goodness, I got it all written down here. So for me, I think the biggest thing that I would say to folks is, so at the end of the trip, right? At the end of the trip, all the teams. So this time we only did 2 teams. We did Cape Coast and then we did Kumasi. So as I described before, Cape Coast is about 2.5 hours away from Accra. Kumasi is about 4.5 hours. So we talking the difference between New York to maybe central New Jersey, and then basically the difference between New York to Philly with Kumasi. So at the end of the 2 weeks, we all met at this one place in Accra, and then we debriefed. And you can hear that everybody took away some really positive things.
Right.
But then after a while, you start hearing some of the criticisms. A lot of them were valid, but also a lot of them were steeped in how we do things in the United States. And I think a lot of the things that we do in the United States actually is dogma-based, or is something that is basically a reaction to medical legal type issues. Right. So you end up not treating a patient, you're treating a lawyer.
Right.
Or a deposition, a future upcoming deposition.
Yeah, gotta treat that deposition. Yeah.
So, things like, a count before we start the operating room, right? Like some of that stuff may not be as common as we do here. I actually don't have a problem with us doing a count, right?
Yeah,
and they didn't have a problem with doing those things. But there are other things that we do that, I don't know, that we do in the United States that may not necessarily need to happen here. So, like timing out, they don't necessarily do timeout. So we had to do that. But I, at the end of the meeting with the entire team, I just, was really clear to let people know that before we start judging people just because they do things differently than the United States on certain specific things, not overall generalized, on certain specific things, we got to remember that the way in which we practice here, some of the standards that we do here are really to allay you getting sued. And just because you're getting sued doesn't necessarily mean that you did something wrong.
Right.
So that was something that we had to talk about. So
okay. All right. So you said it's a professional reboot?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely, yeah.
So, what are you going to change now in your, now that you're rebooted?
Yeah, the easiest thing is that you just realize, so in the United States, we have so many resources, right? We don't think about how much it costs to have these resources.
You got CT scan, you got MRI, you got ultrasound, you got everything. You name it.
Yeah. So in terms of professional reboot, the biggest thing is the resources, right? There is an overall lack of resources that they have compared to what we have. But from a practitioner standpoint, from a physician or even a nurse extender standpoint, these mugs are cold. So for example, getting a CT scan is really difficult and it's very expensive. And these are things that the patients have to pay for directly. So let me just give an example. For example, if a patient has to be admitted for surgery, that patient, so before here in the United States, if someone is going to have surgery, we do pre-op antibiotics, we do pre-op labs. If there's going to be certain equipment that we use, we kind of check the operating room to make sure that they have it. So let's do something as easy like an inguinal hernia.
Right.
For the most part here in the United States, we're going to use something called mesh so that the repair is really good, the recurrence rate is really low, but we're going to give preoperative antibiotics, we're going to get pre-op labs, all these different things. So those labs, that mesh, the antibiotics,
the IV fluids,
all of those things the patient has to buy pre-operatively.
Right.
And they have to have that ready to go the night before so that the surgeon, the nursing staff can use this, which is completely different than how we do things in the United States, right? In the United States, they just write this stuff and it's available.
Right.
But the patient is responsible for this. And as a result, you start to think about is there certain things that we need if the patient can't afford it?
Right.
Right. So the biggest thing for me is I remember doing an appendectomy, and it was on a 14-year-old kid. The appendix looked inflamed, but I didn't see any other pathology. And then you take it out, and we normally, without thinking here in the United States, we send it to pathology. But there, they literally put it into a cup with formalin, and then the patient pays for it. Like there's a slip.
Yeah.
They give it to the pathologist, and the pathologist says, "Look, hey, in order for me to get the results, you got to pay for this." And there were multiple occasions, we did Gynonc where there were these patients who had these big ovarian masses, were concerned about cancer to some form, and there were certain labs, certain markers that we needed, but the patients couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
So what do you do then?
Right.
Right? So you start to realize that you can do a lot more with less. So that's what I mean in terms of these are all part of the building blocks for me in terms of doing a professional reboot.
Yeah.
So when I come back to the United States, I'm like, do I really need labs on a daily basis on certain patients?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Do I really need to order X on patient Y because of this reason, just so that I feel better? Right? These are the things that I'm talking about in terms of a professional reboot. And then, like, low key, I'm not gonna front. Like, every time I come back, I always feel like, we always say it's about giving back. But I can't front. Even this trip, I feel like I learn more. I take away more than what I'm giving.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm thinking, like, man, like, does that make sense? Do you see what I'm saying?
No, it makes total sense.
Like, how much more can I give?
It makes total sense. Listen, part of it, I think, when we go on these trips, we do give resources, right? So we don't want to give our audience kind of the impression that, we just go there and make patients just buy everything. Some things they have to buy, some things, that we don't necessarily come with. But,
so we came with a bunch of IV fluids, folks.
Yeah.
So they didn't have to pay for that. We come with antibiotics, so they don't have to pay for that.
Pain meds.
We come with our own pain medications. We don't rock with the opioids. This trip, we only gave like Motrin and Tylenol. That's it. But we bring a whole bunch of different things, so the cost is the freight. And then obviously we as clinicians, we don't charge for our services,
right?
Which is different than.
Right, exactly. So, the patients at least get that relief, that financial relief. And then, like you said, some things, there are going to be some things where, maybe a lab would really, really help you to decipher what is the next, what's the next best step in the care of this patient. But it's not all the time that you're going to need, an image study, or you're going to need, or the next image study, or you're going to need, like you said, daily labs, and things like that. We do a lot of things here in the United States. Sometimes people are doing daily labs for people who don't necessarily need daily labs, but they're getting it anyway.
Yeah, one of the facilities that I'm at, there's residents there. And one of the first orders that they place is, get daily labs for 72 hours.
Right.
And if you are an intern and you're putting in these hours or putting in these orders, you're just trying to survive.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
You're just trying to survive. So you're just putting in things, but nobody goes in to go and just say, actually, it's day 2. Particularly if it's like, if someone has a broken arm, you don't need daily labs. But that order is reflexively put in. And if someone doesn't go and say, hey, we don't need that, there's an added cost to the patient that they don't need.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, it's always just very interesting, just working overseas and just seeing how things are done and comparing it to the way that we do things.
Yeah, listen, let's get down to the nitty gritty. I think that we need to talk about, how best can I say this?
What you want to say?
Yo, definitely more so on this trip is very recognizable that not everybody knows that going on medical humanitarian trips, going on these mission trips are straight up a privilege.
Yep.
And not everybody should be able to go. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Not everybody should be able to go because a lot of people
I know exactly where you're going.
A lot of people can't check. They don't have the self-awareness to realize that some of the things that you're saying, some of the notions that you have, we don't need that energy.
Right.
So what I mean by that is, like, sometimes I felt like there were some people who were here who were on safari. You know what I'm saying? Right? Like, you go on safari, you go see like an alligator eat like a deer or an antelope, or you see like certain, you know what I'm talking about. Like, you see certain things on safari.
You watch an elephant and you're like, wow, you take a picture.
Right, you take a picture or you ask questions. You're like, what is it that they do?
Right.
What is it that person does? Like, when you ask questions, it's not like, like when you see another human being or you see somebody else going through something, you don't say, what do they do to have fun? Or like, you're just like, oh, I see that they're doing this. That's pretty interesting. That's pretty cool. Okay, let's move on. But the way in which, you know, on our team specifically, we had somebody ask certain questions, it was just like almost like I felt like they were on safari. And as a result, it was like everybody else, particularly the people who are local, native here, were almost like the other. And as a result, like there was one time there was a question of, well, do the people here like have monkeys as pets?
What?
Yeah. And it's like,
wait, what?
I'm dead ass. I'm serious.
That's not true. That's not true.
If I'm lying, I'm flying.
Let me tell you something. First of all, you know what's really funny about that question? The only people that I've ever actually seen have monkeys as pets are in the United States. I'm like...
Some of our favorite artists.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah. So, you know, what bothered me about that was after a series of other, like, questions that I'm like, yeah, there's no self-awareness there. Or you just... Like, I hate when people describe other people based off of what is perceived to be the worst characteristics.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, like, we didn't see any monkeys.
I know.
Around whatsoever.
I'm like, I have literally never seen a monkey.
Never seen a monkey
when we go there.
Every time you see the kids playing around, they're playing around with other kids. They're playing soccer. They're doing all of this.
They might have a dog.
They
might.
I don't, like, they just, whatever. So why would you resort to that type of questioning, right? And for folks who are listening, if you think that I'm being too critical, I mean, what happens is this is not like the first experience, right? This is not the first example that I'm talking about. This is after multiple questions, and you're just like, now I get it.
You're on safari.
You know what I'm saying? You on safari.
She's definitely on safari.
You know? So that's the part with that for me that was really frustrating. So that's what I'm saying. Like, this is a privilege, right? Because these folks, they were going about their regular lives just fine. They don't need us. Right? I just try to tell people, they don't need us. We just happen to be here, and they're letting us into their lives. They're letting us provide certain, care for them.
Right.
But their doctors are cold. You know, the nurses, they know what they're doing. It's just that they may have certain lack of resources. So we coming here acting like we are above them or having a perception that we're above them or we're not like them, I think is a problem.
Yeah.
So that's why I mentioned that. I was like, man, like the privilege that we have, or excuse me, we should really understand that this is really a privilege and that everybody, should not get a chance to be a part of this unless you can check certain things at the door.
Absolutely.
And I didn't like that. I didn't like that line of questioning. Everything is based off of the most primitive of things, and I was like,
right.
Yeah, no, that's not cool with me.
Right.
That's not cool. I didn't like that at all. So.
Wow. Yeah. Well, let's just say it's a good thing you were the team leader.
Oh man, like I mean, there was a couple times when my temperature went up a little bit, and I had to, professionally, I had to check people and just be like, hey guys, like let's slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
Like watch your comments, guys, because you got to remember one thing: they didn't ask you to come here.
Right. You volunteered.
You volunteered to come here, right? And this is a special relationship that we have with folks. So,
right.
So yeah, I had to check them a couple of times, and it's not like it's like an embarrassing type of thing, but it was because you know me already. Like I don't like when people embarrass you. Sometimes I feel like you got to embarrass them to make a point, which kind of leads to this whole Chris Rock thing. We'll talk about that later, but so that's where I was at with that. So,
wow, okay, so all right, well, it sounds like you going there was kind of a newer type of experience for you because of the whole team leader role. You've never really had to kind of check somebody before. You've never had to be, the person that people come to for questions and things like that. But, at the end, like, how did it all come together?
Well, I think for the majority of everybody, it came together, right? I think definitely for me, it came together. For example, there was a resident on the service or on the trip with us, and she's a hospitalist, she's an internal medicine resident. And, I talked to her when we got to Ghana, and like the first day, you know, she was already picking up all of these different, you know, things that she can take back with her to the United States. And definitely by the end, and after discussing things with her, she was like, oh, wow, like, you know, I know that I am very wasteful in X, Y, and Z. I'm going to stop doing this so that, you know, I don't think it's necessary. And then she rounded with the rest of the, you know, hospitalist team or the medicine team, and really like was shocked at how well their clinical diagnosis is, right? So for example, like something as simple as, you know, like I remember I saw like a 21-year-old male. He was a student on campus, right? So we were on University Hospital, which is on Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. So it's a huge campus, all of these different majors and so forth there. And the student came in with, you know, less than 1 day history of right lower quadrant pain. His white count was a little bit elevated. You know, his blood pressure was fine. His heart rate was fine. And, you know, there was a equivalent of a house officer there who was with us. The house officer is the equivalent of an intern, basically.
Right.
And he was asking, you know, let's get an ultrasound. And the doctor or the surgeon I was doing rounds with was like, well, look, this is a male. He's got right lower quadrant pain.
Young.
He's got nausea, right? He doesn't want to eat. No history of stones whatsoever. And he has a marked, you know, slightly elevated white blood cell count. This is acute appendicitis, right? So we didn't get an ultrasound, which that patient would have to pay for up front, and would delay things, and ended up being acute appendicitis, right? So like common things happen commonly, right? And if there are
no zebras,
right, if there are zebras, if there are red herrings, it's after a thorough clinical examination, and it's very what's the word I want to use? It's very poignant use of labs. And if you don't see this, then it's like, well, this can't be the case. Right? So that's the part that I really, really respected. They are really cold. They're cold with their clinical examination. And so I definitely recommend a bunch of people do this, man.
Well, not everybody.
Right.
Not everybody, right? We don't want to bring the savior complex, you know, to mission trips, right?
That savior complex is real, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, that's one of the things, you know, kind of, you know, when I'm more involved in the missions, that I always try to make very clear that, listen, we don't need the American savior to come here and save the Ghanaian people. The Ghanaian people are just fine. You know, so if you feel like you need to save somebody, you can wait until Halloween and dress up as your favorite superhero. But you don't need to come all the way across the Atlantic Ocean to come and do that here. You can just keep that home. So, but yeah, no, it sounds like things went pretty good.
Oh yeah, it was a dope trip, and I recommend that people consider this. I think from a medical student perspective as well as residents, they definitely will benefit a lot from this. So I think that, you know, overall, I think that what I take away is, you know, like getting outside of the country gives you an opportunity to have some perspective. Right. And I think that necessarily in the United States, we spend so much money on medicine and in healthcare, but to what extent and what are the outcomes that we're getting?
Well, I mean, we already know that the outcomes really aren't necessarily much better, especially when you compare like developed countries, right? So we know that the United States lags behind majorly in terms of outcomes. Just look at maternal mortality. That's like on par with almost, you know, developing countries. So I mean, to what end? Yeah, you're right. Like, it's not necessarily improving outcomes across the board. And it's interesting, like, locums in Ghana is actually a term that is used a lot, actually. Really? So a lot of doctors practice in a locums type fashion. Like, they may have a relationship where they're a staff physician at a hospital, but then they go to other hospitals and they work as consultants / locums. Oh, okay, yeah. I've heard them say consultants, /
locums at these hospitals. And you know, I think, you know, one of the things that is really interesting is when I was talking to the resident, I was letting her know that, you know, it's really important that, you know, if you want to continue to do these type of trips, if you want to continue to kind of live your life in a way where you can have these type of experiences. It's really important to have your money right. It's really important to make sure that your student loans are taken care of as soon as possible. And I remember talking to her because she's a second year. She was getting ready to start, looking for a job.
Yeah.
And I was telling her about going on all of these interviews and just really understanding that you are in control.
Right.
And she was like, I really appreciate you saying that because, like, it's just, you feel like you fit in where you get in with medical school. You feel like you just got in, by the luck of draw with residency. And then you always feel like you're replaceable. And you don't know how to turn that off when it's time to look for a job with a hospital.
Yeah.
And as a result, you end up not asking, negotiating, or just using the leverage that you have as someone who just graduated from a residency and the hospital really needs you. You don't even know that you have the leverage. And this is an opportunity to ask for what you want.
Yeah.
And I just kind of talked about everything with her from, if you are, looking at two separate hospitals, like this is how sometimes you may get them to compete against each other. This is some of the questions that you may want to ask, like how many calls that you're going to take. And maybe you should also say, well, if I take more calls than what you're saying in the contract, how am I going to get paid for that? She's like, you can ask for that. I was like, absolutely.
You can ask whatever you want.
I was like, absolutely, you can ask for that. Right? You can ask for many more days off. Like, it's really important to be very clear with what you want, and so she was like really shocked that I was talking to her about that. And I was actually shocked that she was shocked. But then I had to remember, I was like, yo, I'm 10 years deep.
Right.
You're talking to someone who is fairly new in the game. And it's important to not just dismiss her and be like, oh, you're just naive, but to really take the time to say, hey, look, like you're in a power position and you're going to be a real power position in about less than a year. Yeah. So take heed. She was open ears to that. So shout out to her. She knew what was up. So
yeah, no, that's good because, we don't realize that we can be the architects of our own careers, our own lives. We, like you said, like she just felt like I was lucky to get to med school. I was lucky to get into residency. And then now you just kind of, walk with that and you think you feel lucky whenever a hospital wants you, and it's like, maybe the hospital is the lucky one. You know what I mean? So
but I just think that
what?
You work so hard for like 10 years, 11 years, 12 years, 13 years.
Yep.
And then at the end, to just feel like you're just a high-paid employee or something, or just
more, may I have some more, sir?
It's just like, yo,
more.
What we doing here? And it's almost like sometimes when you start talking, like, yeah, you have control, leverage. People looking at you like you ask for too much,
right?
And it's like, nah, that's not true, y'all. Like, you need to be asking for what you deserve. This is you, Like you are in charge of this. Right? So when all of these complaints that people have about certain things about, well, why did they ask me to come in this early to do X? Or why are they taking away this part of my retirement package? Or why are they doing this?
Tell them to stop asking.
Well, part of it is because you allow them to do so.
Right.
So just say, no, I'm not down with that. Right. That's it. No.
Exactly.
And that part of that comes with just understanding, and part of that comes with confidence.
Part of that comes with financial stability.
Yeah.
Part of that really does come with financial stability and understanding that being able to, again, navigate and, structure your life in such a way where you don't feel so vulnerable, because what your resident really described to you was her vulnerability.
Yeah.
Right.
So, real quick. So I had I don't know how this works. If someone is listening, let me know. So my phone was on airplane mode, but I had Wi-Fi on.
Right.
So when people called my phone number, it directed my call through my regular phone, but through Wi-Fi.
Right.
So what I mean is, if people called my U.S. number and I had Wi-Fi on, I would get that number and it would look to me like someone is calling me from the United States. Whereas any phone call that I was making in the country, I would use WhatsApp.
Right.
Yeah, so I would use WhatsApp to connect with you. I'd use WhatsApp to connect to everybody else. So I'm sitting there and one of my old residency buddies, Moose, called me up and I'm like, man, why are you calling me on this damn U.S. number and stuff? But I'm like, wait, we on Wi-Fi. I'm not roaming. So is this a Wi-Fi call or is this like, because I don't want to get like that crazy ass bill like remember back in the early 2000s? Yo, call me at night, son. Call me at night. Right?
At 9 p.m.
At 9 p.m. Call me at 9 p.m., right?
Nights and weekends.
But he called me and I was like, man, let's keep it quick. But he started doing locums now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he started doing locums and he was asking me for what the rates were for general surgery.
Right.
And he was asking, well, how does this work? Because I negotiated a rate, but should I be asking for more? And he told me the rate and I was like, yes, son, you should be asking for more. And this is why. And he was like, well, they're trying to get me on this 3-month thing. And I was like, there's no such thing as, like, you're not tied into anything.
Right.
Outside of 30 days, you ain't tied up for anything. They could say, yeah, we want you to go for a whole year. You could be like, yeah, okay, I'm fine. And then a month into it saying, this don't work for me, I'm out.
Right.
Like, nothing's going to happen to you, right? For the most part. So he is on location. He feels like the amount of money that he's gotten is not really what he's worth. So he was asking me for advice. And I said, look, you got to start having conversations with these folks as if you are an equal partner, an equal player. And maybe even more so than that, right? Because all the liability falls on you.
On you.
You're doing all the work. You're putting in all the time and effort. So you got to make sure that you negotiate. So if they offer you, $50, you got to say, hey, is that really what I want? Or do I really want $80? And like nobody's gonna.
And
laugh.
these are not real numbers, okay, everybody.
Ain't nobody going right, but nobody's gonna laugh you out the room if you say I want $80. Right. Like nobody's gonna chastise you and say, hey, I want 80. Just ask for what you want.
Yeah.
Ask for the things that you need. Ask that you want to be in a certain type of hotel. Ask that you want to make sure that, hey, like I need to have this type of accessibility maybe when I go in because I have this type of disability. Like these are the things that you need to ask. And he's like, I can ask for that.
It's like
I can do this.
So I answered a question for a pre-med yesterday, and she was just, kind of afraid to apply to medical school because she's afraid that, the medical schools are going to say this about my application, that about my application. And what I said to her was like, something? My parents always taught me not to say no to yourself. Because
that
when
sounds
you
very
say
motivational. Keep hope alive.
Because when you say no to yourself, then what happens is you never ask the question.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a good point, though.
And asking the question actually is an opportunity for someone else to say yes. Right? But if the answer is no, then let them say no.
Yeah.
Why are you saying no to yourself?
Yeah.
So you never give the opportunity to say yes. So just ask the question. If they say no, well, say no.
Yo, let's be honest. I think that comes from insecurity, right? Because I think a lot of people who are applying to school, they come from, I know that's for me. I feel like I come from outside of the system, right? I don't come from the pedigree of being a doctor. So I always feel like I have like this insecurity, like I don't belong. Or, you've seen me, like I'm super humble to the point where it hurts yourself. Like it hurts me. Right. So like you said, like, well, I'm not going to ask that question because they're going to say no anyway. And you're like, well, but you didn't ask the question.
Yeah, just ask the question.
Why you saying no to yourself?
Right.
For? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, I think that's something that, a lot of doctors can learn from. It's like, don't say no to yourself. Let somebody else say no. Let them say no. But remember that if you don't ask the question, you don't give the opportunity to ever say yes.
Yeah. So I stayed for 2 extra days so that I could see family. So my family's all located in Accra. And
Lots of babies in the family.
Oh, my goodness, yo. I got a chance to hang out with my cousin, and we went, anybody who don't know, Accra downtown?
I know. Oh, you told me.
Accra downtown is dope.
Hot.
It's nice. It's hot, yo. The average temperature was
hot
anywhere
craw?
between... Yo, I have to say like either high 80s or mid 90s at the time of the year that we were at, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, Ghana was playing Nigeria, is the World Cup qualifier. And we went to the spot in Accra, which is not too far from the airport, called the Honeysuckle. And I felt like I was like in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Right? Like
hot Accra, hot Atlanta.
Yo, there was all of these people who are either outside of this bar. This is like a bar and grill. So just like you would think of Hooters or any type of, the same thing.
Right.
Same type of experience. This place was packed. Yo, like it was literally moving sideways like, excuse me. Yo, Renee, ain't nobody was wearing a mask.
Except you.
Nobody was rocking a mask. Yo, for real, I gotta tell you, like nobody was rocking a mask. And trying to come back into the United States, you gotta have within 24 hours, you gotta take a COVID test and it has to be negative.
Yeah.
And I was like, yo, look, I ain't getting COVID here. So I had my mask on. I'm going through people. My cousin is taking me all the way to the back room. Like this place was packed because everybody's watching this game.
Yeah.
The game ended up being 0-0. But Ghana's had some issues over the last, like I say, several years. Like at least 2 to 3 years, they've had some issues. But I was not expecting them to tie. I thought Nigeria was going to win, and
Yeah.
So that was fun. That was fun watching the game, and I was glad that the game was tied. And then they played again yesterday, and Ghana won. So we're going to the World Cup. We're going to play in Qatar for the World Cup. But we got a pretty young team. But this is not Ghana, Nigeria, or this is not Ghana team from
2000,
like 10 years ago, like 2008, the dope team that got robbed with Uruguay. I'm not heard about that, But it was fun. It was really fun. And Accra was off the chain, and that was it. And then it was time to fly home. I flew home on Sunday, and normally when I fly home, it's always, I think it's usually like on a Friday.
Yeah,
usually we fly home like a Friday or a Saturday.
Or Saturday into Sunday, actually.
So the whole team actually flew home on Friday night.
Oh, they flew Friday, not Saturday?
No, they flew Friday night.
Oh, okay.
No, you're right.
Yeah, Saturday we usually
Nope, you're wrong.
Home.
They flew home Friday night. Because I went out. They flew home Friday night and got to United States by Saturday morning.
Oh, maybe that's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So then I flew home Sunday night, and I got to the United States by 5 in the morning, 5:45 in the morning. My phone was in my bag, which was, overhead. And then I got my phone, and I don't know why JFK does this. There's this long ass walk from the plane all the way to customs immigration. I'm talking about like almost like a 1 mile walk.
Yeah.
Now interspersed, there's some what do you call those
walking platforms.
Not escalators, but
no, they're not like the electric sidewalks.
What do you call those things? Those things that I forget the name of it.
Yeah, whatever.
Anyway,
we know what they
so
are.
interspersed is there, but it's a long ass walk, and I turned my phone on. And my phone is getting like all of these messages. I'm like, all right, whatever. By the time I get to customs, I got to go in my bag because I got to find my passport. I'm in a long line. And then I'm looking on my phone. And it says, Chris Rock, Will Smith controversy. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then like my phone, it says what the controversy is.
Right.
And then it shows a picture. And I just see literally Chris Rock like... And then I see, Will Smith with his hand going this way.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, so this is like a joke. I thought it was literally a joke. Lo and behold.
It was not a
that
joke.
Shit was for real. And I'm going through immigration to the point where the immigration officer was like, yo, can you pay attention? I'm like, yo, did you just see that Chris Rock got smacked out by by Will Smith? He's like, yeah, I know, man. Welcome to America.
Welcome to America.
Damn. Yo, so listen, like let's talk about let's unpack that a little bit. My standpoint is I can't tell you what was on Will Smith's mind. I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a therapist, so I'm not even going to spend my time trying to figure out what was in his mind. What's done is done. And the reaction is what the reaction is, but
yeah.
So listen, like, have you ever been in a situation where you felt like you needed to
absolutely
smack somebody up?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Someone has said something to me where I'm like, and you know me, I'm not very easily triggered. But
that is true. That is true. You're not easily triggered. Yeah.
No, I'm not easily triggered. It takes a lot to get me. But I can think of definitely at least one situation where someone has literally said something to me and I had to, take a couple of steps back, think about all the consequences, and then, figure out how to professionally deal with it. So, I see a lot of people, I have never done.
I'm shocked at how many people are. I'm shocked at how split it appears Twitter is and social media is on this. I thought it was going to be one way. Like I'm definitely a proponent of like nonviolence and trying to find better ways. I'm not saying I'm perfect. But I don't think violence is the answer, particularly in this type of fashion, like in a public forum, based off of a joke that really didn't hit. And I didn't even think the joke was that.
It was a 6th grade joke.
I didn't even think the joke was that bad.
It was like a bad middle school joke.
And he was laughing at first, and then all of a sudden he came. There's so much to unpack there, and oof. So I think for me, the lesson that I learned from that is I'll be honest. Like there are times where I've been disrespected in the past, and in my mind kind of was like, man, like what can I do right now in this situation to kind of just how do I want to say it? How do I establish the respect, or how do I demand respect in this type of situation? Does it have to be me raising my voice? Does it have to be me removing myself from the situation, or does it have to do I have to resort to violence?
Right.
And I've never resorted to violence, but there are times when I steep and I think about things and it just kind of rolls over in my mind and I'm like, man, I should have did this, or I should have knocked this guy up the side of the head.
Oh yeah, you definitely have those thoughts.
And then you look at the aftermath of this and you're like, damn,
Like,
bro,
I'm glad I never did that.
like, I don't know what's in Will Smith's mind, but I'm sure he's got to feel, I don't know. But like, that was not cool at all. And as a matter of fact,
Yeah.
it actually, I think it makes him look worse because so many people are saying like either his reaction was only to either, you know, make his ego better, or his reaction was only to prove something to his wife. But it really wasn't, or to me, it appears that most people kind of realize that, yeah, this had nothing to do with actually really defending Jada Pinkett's hurt.
That's my take.
And I think that's such a bad look.
Yeah,
right?
that's my take.
Because it's something that is so, like, you can't get as clear as, smacking someone because you didn't like what they did, but then so many different interpretations.
Not even what they did, what they said.
What they said. No, what I'm saying is what he did, right? He slapped him across the face, right? Which was in response to the joke that Chris Rock said, but people are interpreting it from so many different places. And the majority of people are either, my man did it for his ego, or my man did it to, make sure that my wife knows that, do you say, as opposed to just let me protect my wife?
Yeah, I don't. So here's my problem with with the protection camp. Oh, he did it to protect his wife.
Uh-oh.
So when you go to protect somebody from something, from a danger, right? You usually are intervening in a way to remove that person from the danger, to remove that person from a consequence of the danger, to basically to remove that person so that person feels safer. And I have a problem with basically people essentially coming to the conclusion that, a person can protect another person only by violence. Like that to me is
specifically like, when the person that is being protected
in danger, is not in physical danger. And for me, I feel like, so you want to blame the wife's, feelings of hurt for the reason that this person incited a violent attack? I think that's kind of irresponsible, I mean,
kinda.
That's very irresponsible. Yeah. If you said to me, yeah, but you looked hurt, so therefore I went and I smacked somebody, yeah, I would tell you.
People projecting.
Yeah.
People are projecting.
Exactly. I would say to you
people
that,
projecting the insecurities. People are projecting some toxic masculinity. I know people use that a lot, but whatever people are saying is a projection of how they would want to react or how they feel they would react in that situation, not of reality. And we got to understand, like, dude has been under the spotlight in a negative fashion for at least 2 years, and he is at the pinnacle of his career, and then this joke goes on, and the reaction is just like that. Right? And I'm not excusing this. I'm just saying that we got to think about, like, everything that everybody else is saying. Are we sure that Will Smith kind of thought about all those things that we're talking about in terms of hair, in terms of just women in general? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I
don't think so.
I don't know, man.
And for me, like I said, if you were to do that, I would tell you that absolutely did not protect me. Actually, you subjected me to more trauma
in public?
What you did. No, obviously I would talk to you privately. You and I have.
No, I'm saying if I handled it in public versus if I handled it privately.
No, if you handled that, if you did what he did, I would tell you that absolutely did not protect me. It actually subjected me to more trauma. Like, we've talked about this subject back and forth, but what's really funny is that now there's there's a potentially a canceling of insult comedy.
Yeah.
Right? Potentially. But what's ironic is that Chris Rock, again, it was a classless joke, but he ended up coming out the classy one.
Yeah.
Because of the way he reacted. But what's ironic is that this insult comedy that Chris Rock delivered is the same type of insult comedy that Will Smith built his entire acting career on.
Yeah, if you guys don't believe us, read his book.
Yeah.
Read his,
well,
he actually
just watch The Fresh Prince.
Yeah.
6 seasons of fat shaming James Avery.
Right.
6 seasons of it.
But see, the reason I say, so you're right. But I think he respected James Avery.
Oh, he
It was very
absolutely
clear
did.
he respected James Avery. He looked at him as a father figure.
Absolutely.
But in his book, before the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the way he did battle rapping, before it was really called battle rapping, was cracking a joke on someone before they were able to say anything else. Like, you can't, if you're making a whole bunch of different people laugh, which ultimately usually is laughing at your expense, you won.
Right.
So.
Absolutely. But I mean, that literally is how he built his career, was on insult comedy. He insulted, Alfonso Ribeiro the entire time about his height. These are physical appearances that people don't necessarily have 100% control of, right? And so ironically, he ends up kind of being insulted by insult comedy that is delivered to his wife. And for me, I'm just kind of like, well, here's the irony of it,
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so I just think, when I read his book,
Phenomenal book. Reviews coming, y'all.
Absolutely phenomenal
We coming to a
book.
review real soon, so pay attention.
But this moment, if you read the book, you can see where this moment comes from.
Yeah.
You know exactly where this moment comes. We need to review the book at some point.
The book leaves cookie crumbs, freaking popcorn,
Yeah.
freaking fufu, like freaking whatever you want,
Jollof rice, grains.
whatever it is, so that you know that this event could happen, yo.
Yes.
Oh
Yes.
my goodness. So yeah, I think that was a really bad situation overall. And
Dang, no more your mama jokes?
I don't know.
No more roasts. Comedy, insult comedy has officially been canceled.
So I think also people need to understand, like, being in the limelight is stressful.
Yes,
as fuck.
it really is.
This man broke.
Very much is.
This mug crumbled, and I think that he probably made some. I don't know, but it seemed like he made some type of decision of like, I've had enough, and that was it. And
yeah, I don't know if he made a decision that I had. Well, my take is not that he made a decision that he had enough. My take is that I don't actually think that he was protecting his wife. I think he was protecting himself.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think it seemed like maybe he was like, I had enough. And I don't know if that decision, the last straw of it had to do with you said something about my wife or you just pissed me off. Do you see what I'm saying?
But I don't think that smack had anything to do with the joke.
That's probably 2 years of smack.
I don't even.
Or 3 years.
Well,
of smack.
I don't even think so. I think it didn't have anything to do with the joke itself. I think So I'm going to just tell my take. Again, I don't know these people, but I'm just going to say, after reading the book and after seeing the reaction of everything that happened, he laughed. He even clapped a little bit while he was laughing. So he obviously thought it was funny. He's someone who obviously appreciates insult comedy.
Right.
So he probably saw the joke in it, but then he looked over to his left and saw, wait a minute.
Yeah, my woman don't think this is funny.
She's rolling her eyes, and I am going to have to answer to her. And so there's this hyper response of, well, let me just, pretend that it wasn't funny and get upset and go to Chris Rock and let him know that I didn't like that. And for me, again, that's not protecting your wife. If she's emotionally hurt, he literally could have leaned over and said, baby, listen, we don't have to stay here. We can leave. We can leave. Or if he was going to mount the stage, simply say to Chris Rock, take the mic and say, you owe my wife an apology. That's how you protect her. Her feelings are hurt. So slapping Chris Rock doesn't make her feel better. It doesn't protect her feelings. It doesn't comfort her, And so for me, I just think it was such a bad reaction.
What do y'all think, yo? Text us, hit us up after hearing this at 833-230-2860. I ain't got my glasses on. Once again, that's 833-230-2860. If you're running or driving during all this, turn that alarm off. If you're running or driving during this time, or you can't get to write that number down, just check out the show notes and you'll be able to leave us a text message. So I look, I don't know what was behind all of this stuff. It was a bad look. And listen, I'm not confront. There's been a couple of times in residency where I felt, because of the hierarchical system, somebody has talked to me in a way that I'm like, man, like if I saw this person in the streets, this person would not talk to me like that.
I definitely have been Been there.
In my opinion, violence is never the answer.
Yeah.
Particularly when your life is not in danger, or you feel like, hey, like I don't need to like actually defend myself against violence and stuff. So
right. If your life is in danger, all bets are off.
Yeah, that's different and stuff. But also at the same time, I think people who are in power positions, if you're in a hospital and you're in charge of people, if you're in charge of a team, watch your words. Yeah, because your words can
cut really deep.
Can cut really deep, yeah. And that's not true leadership. That's not true. That's not how you lead a team, right? Mm-hmm. And that's not how you get respect. Right. And I know a lot of people in medicine, they still old school, and they're just like, I'm going to put you through the pain that I was put through the pain.
Surgeons
and as
in
a result,
the OR.
Surgeons in the OR. I'll be the first one to say surgeons in the OR talk like this. Mm-hmm. People who are in director positions, people who are chair people, people who are chief residents, they talk to other people like that. It's like, watch your words, treat people with respect, have empathy, because that's how you're really going to inspire people. That's how you're really going to inspire change. And just remember, all of this stuff, like what we do in the hospital, this hierarchy is based off of a fake hierarchy that really is based just in the hospital.
Right.
And you try any of that stuff outside,
you might get those hands.
So like I said before, like I'm not justifying any
right.
I'm not justifying any violence whatsoever.
But you can't control how people react, i.e. what happened at the Oscars.
Yeah. So treat people with respect. If you're a resident, if you're a chief resident, if you are in charge of your own clinic and you got people who are working, under you, be respectful, right? Be cognizant of maybe the reason why your turnover occurs so much in your staff is because you're not treating them with respect. You're not giving them the buy-in.
Yeah.
So just recognize that.
And also realizing really quickly before we end is that when you
that's my part before we end.
Okay, well,
co-host.
Okay, before we end, realize also that you might be putting a target on your back. If you are somebody who reacts in a very hot-headed way, and me, my favorite example of that is Sonny
from The Godfather.
Corleone, okay? And you might actually be set up for something because when you are a creature of habit in that way, and people can predict that you are going to be a hothead, that you are going to do or say things that really just kind of either incite violence or just very inappropriate, people can really set you up because you actually become dumber when you are angry. You actually become dumber. And so you do things that are desperate and don't make any sense. So, for all those surgeons in the OR who be screaming at people, I'm like, listen, if you out of control, don't worry. Somebody will control you.
Yeah. And I my last parting words is I'm not a perfect person, but I definitely think that violence is not the way. And I used to struggle in those type of situations where I felt like, man, if I was being disrespected, how do I make sure that I don't, like I would go home and I would like think about it, man, I should have did X, man, I should have did Y, man, I should have did all these different things. And then you end up like in an outburst that's embarrassing later on. And I've just learned this is not for everybody. This is just how I do it is if I feel like there's some type of discrepancy or there's some type of issue and I'm like, does this guy really say this? Or this girl really say this? Like I stop actually and I just take a pause. And if I perceive that to be like a slight, I actually handle it right at that moment. However awkward it may be, I'll be like, pause. I've done that now in meetings where I just be pause. Your comment, I took it as X, Y, and Z. Is that what you meant? And then if they say yay or nay, then I move appropriately. And I always handle it now in that fashion because in some form of fashion, and it's not angry, but it's just like, look, I need to handle this right now because I know myself. I'm going to think about it. So I tell people, listen, it's always better to handle it up front as opposed to just having this restraint that, and I'm not saying handling it in a negative way. I'm just asking a question and finding clarity from that. And really standing your ground as opposed to internalizing it and just letting it build up to the point where it explodes in a fashion that is not very positive. So,
and suffering a really detrimental consequence.
For everyone out there who, based off of the comments on social media, I feel like there's a lot of people who are projecting out there. And I'm not going to pass any comment or any judgment, but I think it's pretty clear based off of this event that a lot of people could benefit from some therapy. For real.
Well,
Like,
I mean, it just clearly shows you that many people think that violence is okay.
well,
they just
and-
think it is.
Right, but like they're not gonna get better just off of
No,
like,
but
so
I mean, I just
talking
want
to
to be.
talking to somebody, reading a couple of
Yeah.
books or whatever it may be. Like we just gotta work. We gotta be better, y'all. We gotta figure out if we need to go and see somebody who we can talk about our issues.
Mm-hmm.
That may be the answer. And I'm gonna leave it at that, yo.
Yeah.
So listen, everyone, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Docs Outside the Box. If you agreed with us, or if you didn't agree with us, or if you just want to smack us on top of the head, make sure you text us first so we know
Maybe
when,
we said
so we
something
know.
to offend you, and now we
So
got to
we
get
know
our
you
faces
coming for
smacked.
us, right? Before you come for us, make sure you text us, yo. I'm coming for you, Dr. Nii. Hit us up at 833.
You will get kicked in your chest, I promise you.
This is Sparta or Dave Chappelle wise.
No, well, you might get a combo between the two. This is Sparta and a little bit of Rick James, but yes.
All right, make sure you text us at 833-230-2860. Once again, shout out to our sponsors of the show. Listen, make sure you go to our show notes and check out all the resources. We got a new website. We'll talk about that later on, but make sure you check out Dr. Nii Darko. We got some new designs going on over there, as well as we got some sponsors of this show who, I think you guys will really benefit from greatly. So other than that, Dr. Renee, we're going to catch you guys on the next episode of Docs Outside the Box. We got a pretty busy month of April.
Yep.
Catch you on the next one.
Peace.
Peace.